Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much indeed for tuning in to episode 460 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, then please do consider doing so. You can click on the little bell to make sure you get notifications of new videos. And if you would like to find out how you support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. Please forgive the cough. And also, if you like the video, which will eventually start, I promise, please do give it a thumbs up. Now, goodness me, so many comments already, because I was just kind of sorting a few things out because I had an IT issue and you're all just chatting away about this, the subject. But then it is exciting. A new Chanel is still a very, very exciting prospect. We're going to be talking about this in a second. It's the latest exclusive from Chanel and it's called Comet, or Comete, I should say. There we are. Composed, of course, by Olivier Polge, but I need to find out who the first comment was. Not the first comment. Oh, there's going to be a lot of that. Is from Mache, who says, finally. Jeff says, Guerlain has the Meteorite, Dior has Étoile, Louis Vuitton has Étoile Filante, Chanel has Comet. There must be something in the stars for all these brands to be fixated on space gas masses. I don't know. If I find out what it is, I will tell you. Sister Parfum says, yes, was on my list for you to review today. Natasha says, when I first read the name of the scent, I thought it said Conte, cheesy Chanel. Oh, I would love that. Gruyere, and a nice brie scent. Who would do brie? I don't know. But never mind. Let's not go down there. So many of you already commenting. I can't read all of these comments. This is out, I think, in a few days, maybe towards the end of this coming week. Johnny says, I'm hoping it's a hairy-chested animalic leather as I'm running out of Dior Leather Oud and can't find an alternative. Hang on. Do you really think a scent called Comet would be... I'm telling you now, it is not a hairy-chested animalic leather. If you want something along those lines, you need to go to the previous exclusive. You need to go to Le Lion. Claire says, hi, Mr. Persolaise. I've seen Jacob's review. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Oh, I'm not aware of what was said in that review. James says, smelt this a week ago. Didn't really like it, though. Okay. So, let's do a little bit of context because we like context, don't we? We have a pre-dipped mermaid. We also have a press release, and we may also, hopefully, as long as I can get transcribing and get typing, we may have a brief interview with Olivier Polge over on the Substack, but please don't hold your breath because it's going to take me a while to do that. So maybe at some stage between now and the next 3 weeks or so, where he was talking about making this scent. This is, for the few of you who may not be aware, this isn't the kind of high-end Chanel collection, the collection that isn't available at all Chanel outlets, although it is available in many, many more outlets than it used to be a few years ago. So, for instance, back in the day, I think you could only get it at Harrods and at Chanel boutiques. Now there are a lot more places. A lot of branches of John Lewis in the UK will have them. A lot of branches of department stores around the world, in France particularly. So they are definitely less exclusive than they used to be. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Alcoholic Nun is talking about price increases. Yes, we have had a Chanel price hike as well. And I really do wonder if the time hasn't come for Chanel to seriously consider making 100 ml bottles of these, because they do them in a 75 and they do them in a 200. It just feels a little bit mean to be making the smaller bottle 75, or did they kind of think that at least that might make it in a somewhat more accessible price bracket, although I think the 75s are a crazy price as well. So yeah, this stuff is not cheap. Aperol Spritz says, back in the day, Les Exclusifs were also a lot more affordable. Yes, I wish I kept, one of the most interesting things to keep records of, I think, is prices. And I should do it more often because I'm pretty certain the very first exclusive I bought personally was Sycamore in the EDT. I still have that bottle. And, I had to kind of give it, think, what am I trying to say? I had to think about it twice and 3 times and 4 times and look at the old budget and save up for a little while. But it wasn't that crazy a purchase when I bought it. Whereas now, if I were to buy this, I probably wouldn't. I don't know. Well, yeah. We talked about price in a video that I did, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where I reviewed some scents from Louis Vuitton and Calvin Klein. So do check out that video if you would like to join in that discussion. Christine says, I remember buying Misia for £115. How much is it now? Wow. Now Misia came out in 2015. Yeah, well, that was 9 years ago. Well, I will tell you now, Christine, that the 200 ml bottle of the exclusives now costs £380. I think some are 390. It's bonkers. It's bonkers, and I really think something is going to happen. I think some kind of bubble is going to burst, or there's going. I mean, I don't really see prices ever going down, but I think something's going to happen. I think something's going to have to give, because this can't carry on. Anyway, they don't do many of these exclusives. When Jacques Polge, Olivier's father, was still at the helm, we tended to get one every year or every 18 months or so. The very first one we had from Olivier Polge was actually Misia, which lots of people loved, a kind of real retro violet. Then he gave us Boy, which I adore, really, really beautiful modern fougere. Then he gave us 1957 in 2019, which is kind of relevant in the context of Comet. And then in 2021, we had Le Lion, which I, as you know, if you've seen the review, I adore. Not only do I think it's one of the best Chanel's ever, I absolutely think it's one of the best things that Olivier Polge has ever done, and it's one of my favorite perfumes of the century. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, but it's also a scent of a very particular type. It's a really leathery, incensey amber, and it's very, very big, and it's quite bold, and it's quite animalic for a Chanel. And there was no way that they were going to do something like it for the next exclusive. I mean, they shouldn't do anything like it for the next exclusive. It was an act that you couldn't top. They've also been spending a lot of time and resources on their Les Eaux collection, the ones which are Paris followed by another destination, Paris Riviera, Paris Venice, Paris Edinburgh, and those apparently have been doing quite well. So now, finally, in 2024, we get a new one. So I think we should have a sniff. I've already said that 1957 is interesting in this regard. Here we go. Much has been made of the cherry blossom note in this, which, with a lot of people, unsurprisingly, thinking, does this mean it's being aimed at the Far Eastern market? Now, the cherry blossom is definitely there, but this is not a cherry blossom scent. Okay. Yeah, so it starts off. First of all, the impression, the overall impression you get of it is that it is very, very haute couture. It is very Chanel. It's somehow very, very understatedly buttoned up, chicly French. And it made me reflect that, much as we like to be critical of brands like Chanel and Dior and Guerlain, there really aren't very many, if any, well, not very many poor Chanel perfumes. There's no point in my pretending that I like Bleu de Chanel, because that would just be silly, because I've gone on record as saying that I'm not a fan of it at all. It's been ridiculously successful for the brand, so okay, fine, it's obviously resonated with some people. I don't much care for it. But as I look at the list of the currently available exclusives, and I don't think any have been discontinued, have they? So the exclusives came out with reworkings of 4 older Chanels, right? So they did number 22, Gardenia, Bois d'Azil, and Cuir de Russie, but then they also gave us the Eau de Cologne, Rocambon, number 18, Coromandel. I mean, these are all a lot of them are either superb perfumes, or at the very, very least, they're really good. Bel Respiro, La Pausa, Sycamore, beige. I mean, okay, I know there are lots of people who don't like beige, but there are also plenty of people out there who adore beige. Jersey is one of the exclusives that I don't particularly care for very much, because that kind of sweet all-out lavender just doesn't do it for me. But 1932 is quite interesting. Misia is interesting, and we've already talked about the others. So, this is a strong collection. It's and also the brand as a whole is strong. But like I said, I don't care for Blur, and I'm not the biggest fan of Egoist Platinum and some of the Allures. But, you know, Antaeus is still one of my favorite perfumes of all time. Pour Monsieur is wonderful. Original Egoist is wonderful. There are so many glorious feminine scents in that range. Gabrielle, I think some of us thought was a little bit of a disappointment, but had it come out from most other brands, we would have been cheering and partying. It does work fine as a scent. I don't know if it's done very well for them. So this immediately falls into that camp of being kind of interesting and attractive. Go back to describing how it smells. There is a cherry blossom note in there, but it is not overtly figurative. And what you get is that kind of almond quality of cherry together with the sweet, syrupy quality of cherry and the kind of honeyed feel maybe of cherry blossom. But then immediately you go into what this perfume is actually about, which is a kind of aldehydic powdery iris. Made drier because of that almondy cherry blossomy note. And sure enough, that almond also connects with heliotrope. And of course, heliotrope has an almondy quality to it as well. It's not gourmand. It's not marzipan-y in any way. It's not sickly, sticky, sweet in any way at all. It is, to my nose, if I had to categorize it, it is another Chanel iris. And I was lucky enough to be invited to the launch of this, and one of the questions that I put to Olivier Polge was, what makes this iris different from the other Chanel irises? Because, you know, there are a lot of them. Number 19, of course, is famously a kind of green iris. La Pausa is a beautiful iris. We had iris playing a prominent role in 1932 and 1957. There's you know, a fair bit of iris in Cristal. It's a very Chanel note, and I think it's appropriate that it's a Chanel note because there is something quite austere and haughty and beautiful and striking and high cheekboned about it, and also something very, very purely white about it. So in that sense, it is a good note for Chanel to appropriate. But I'm not sure that Polge really answered my question, because I think he wanted to go down presenting the route of presenting the perfume as being quite abstract. He talked about how Gabrielle Chanel herself never wanted her perfumes to be very literal or figurative. Very famously, with number 5, she wanted to put something out there that was very, very unashamedly artificial. And you, instead of using the word artificial, you could also say abstract, something that didn't necessarily correlate directly to something in the real world. And I think that's where Polge was going with his answer to me, that he didn't want to kind of start talking about the technicalities of the ingredients. For him, this is a more sort of astral iris, a more optimistic iris. The marketing is really, really pushing this optimism idea, which is interesting, kind of thinking about the state that the world is in and has been for the last few years. I wonder if we're going to see more optimism being pushed from the brands. Olfactively, for me, it's an almondy iris, and I think that's what makes it different. So number 19 is the all-out, serious, formal green iris. Number 1932 is the kind of jasmine-y, sort of more plush iris. 1957, resmelling it recently, is actually the kind of woody, vetiver sort of iris. This is maybe, we could even say that the sort of bitter iris, but I hesitate to use the word bitter because it's not a bitter perfume. It's very, very, very aldehydic. You know, you could also almost think of it. Yes, and we haven't mentioned number 19 Poudre, the scent that a lot of us loved, but which didn't do very well at all. This has got quite a few similarities with number 19 Poudre, the flanker of number 19 that came out, what, maybe about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So if you liked Poudre, do smell this one. And I wonder if Polge himself, the way he approaches some scents, is through this kind of method of synthesis. I wonder if he likes, I mean, it's not unusual for a perfumer to work in this way, to sort of go, oh, you know, I can see that these perfumes have a kind of commonality and this is what I like about them. I wonder if I can sort of draw the commonality out and create something new out of it. For instance, for me, for Le Lion, what he did, either consciously or subconsciously, was take Shalimar and Coromandel and Cuir de Russie and create this beauty out of them that we didn't even know we wanted. This feels like a kind of number 19, 1932, number 19 Poudre, 1957 thing combined. It's oh, and Esumar says, don't forget number 18 Iris. Yeah, I suppose so, but I always think of number 18 as more rose. I mean, the exclusive, I think all of them famously contain a kind of iris note. Oh, Woozy, that's very, very kind. Thank you very much. You don't need to do that, but that's very sweet. Thank you. Spending 5, hang on, is that Australian? No, AU, no, that's Australian dollars, isn't it? AED is dirhams. To ensure La Pausa gets a shout out for being a great iris. Thanks for the great videos, but that's very, very sweet. Yes, I mean, but I suppose La Pausa is the most irisy iris, isn't it? You know, that's the kind of unashamedly irisy iris. It's very, very, very attractive and very, very, very Chanel. I was also thinking that, you know, back in the day, I wonder if this would have been an exclusive. You know, I would have loved it if this had actually been Gabrielle. I would have loved it if this had been a mainstream scent from Chanel. But I think those days are gone. I think anything more interesting, maybe a little bit more polarizing, a little bit more challenging, is going to be in the exclusives. And I don't want to make out that this is super challenging in any way, because it's not. But that almond note is the thing that is going to be, I think, the deal breaker for some. Whereas I quite like the fact that it's in there, because it just stops the whole thing from being too cuddly. Let's look at press release and then look at Pre-Dipped Mermaid. Here we go. So this image actually that they've done, this illustration that they've done to go with it, is pretty good, you know. I think it sort of captures the scent fairly well. The whiteness, the almost sort of sea spray, sea foam. I mean, not that it's marine, but you know, that kind of plush softness. There are lots and lots of nicely judged musks in here. Anyway, brimming with emotions and sensations, fragrance is a language. It can reveal a facet of the person who wears it. Okay, can we just get into the nitty-gritty? This is all general. For Mademoiselle Chanel, the star and comet were always her preferred sources of inspiration, enhancing women's beauty with their celestial dust. For their incomparable sparkle, Gabrielle Chanel chose the comet and star as essential themes of her first high jewelry collection, presented in Paris in 1932. It was only natural that she designed jewelry in its shape, such as the comet necklace that threads around the neck, resting freely against the skin. We were not given the necklace to go away with at the press event. Gabrielle Chanel was convinced of the magical power of the comet, omnipresent in her universe, and made this one of her symbols of eternal chance and the emblem of her unfailing optimism. Like a trace of light in the night, this singular comet leaves its own olfactory trail, rare and unforgettable. Olivier Polge explains, at the beginning of each creation, you need an inspiring element. And for Comete, the starting point was the idea of stardust. Now, funnily enough, probably not funnily, I'm sure it's no coincidence at all, the latest ad campaign, or I should say the current ad campaign for number 5, which was revealed, what, 2 years ago, 2 and a bit years ago, with Marion Cotillard, was them dancing on the moon, right? So I wonder if more brands are going to be thinking that the only way to take us out of ourselves and out of this world is by propelling us into outer space. The comet is a strong symbol for Chanel, carries on Olivier Polge, and I'm thinking in particular of the comet necklace from the 1932 high jewelry collection, which is worn open, laying right on the skin, and reminds me of the enveloping trail of a skin fragrance. Intensely floral and luminous. I don't know about intensely floral, because of course iris is you know, it's debatable whether that's a floral note. Comet explores a new olfactory identity in the exclusive collection, rich and powdery, sophisticated and complex. It is a universe in itself. Just like this traveling star, the eau de parfum is suffused with a fresh and delicate cherry blossom accord, very, very delicate. A trace of luminosity and purity transforms with heliotrope notes, blending into a cloud of iris extract and a musk accord. This sensual fragrance, which envelops the skin with elusive magnetism, celebrates its singular character. Comet is a fragrance trail of stardust and of a celestial jewel which in a reflection of Gabrielle Chanel chooses its own trajectory and never deviates from its path, etc., etc. It is an aura of light unfurling the power of optimism. There is a lot of optimism going on here, isn't there? And that's kind of it. So refreshingly prosaic. Why use the cherry blossom, though, says Jen O, in relation to the astral comet inspiration? That's a good question. I wonder if that's a little bit of a sort of retrofitting, because I wonder if whatever that cherry material is, which obviously is going to be some kind of a synthetic, ties in with that heliotrope note that comes in later. And I wonder if that's what had to be done. Yeah, because in terms of the story, the cherry blossom is a little bit what's the opposite of cohesive? Uncohesive? You know what I mean. Not incohesive. You know what I mean. What are you folks saying? Jeff says, background story-wise, this ties in so much with 1932, and yet they both are similarly aligned in impression. Yankee Bob says, to connect with the Asian market where spring is in full bloom. Jeff Sheen says, almond and heliotrope always came across as a more Guerlain note. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't disagree. Johnny says, I don't think I've ever read the press release to anything I've ever bought. I've probably not bought some of the stuff I've... Yeah, well, yes. We do like a good press release on this channel. Carly-eyed says, I have some trouble with powdery scents. They either make me think of baby powder, dry chalk, or chalky Smarties candles, making me choke up a bit when I smell them. Yeah, but anyway, here's Pre-Dipped Mermaid. It's the musks tend towards sweetness. It actually kind of becomes sweeter as it goes along. I think in a way the dry down is perhaps my least favorite part of it. I like that opening where that almondy thing goes into the iris and the heliotrope. Maybe it just becomes a bit more comfortable as it goes along, but maybe that's also the idea. Maybe that's why it projects the optimism. It's very, very attractive. It's very pretty. It's one of the prettiest of the exclusives. And I think maybe they felt they had to go for that, because although I adore Le Lion, and I know lots and lots of people who adore it, I also know lots of people who really don't like it and can't take it. And so I think they completely had to go in an opposite direction with this and think, okay, well, we gave folks the Chanel Beast. Now we need to give folks the Chanel Stardust, the pretty Chanel Comet. And thank goodness it's not a Chanel Disney princess, because it really, really isn't. It's more sophisticated than that. But it could be some kind of astral fairy riding a comet or something along those lines. Shimon says, pretty doesn't seem like it. By the way, hello. You haven't been on this channel for a while, have you? Nice to see your name pop up. Pretty doesn't seem like a positive thing in this case. No, it is. It is. I mean, is it good? No. I'm going to say it is. It's pretty is better, much better than nice, right? And this is much better than nice. It is attractive, and I think you should try it. But whether or not you're going to spend £400 on a 200ml bottle, I don't know. Okay, I have rabbited on enough about this one. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to be back in a few moments with a final video of the day where we're going to be having fun with 2 vintage scents. See you in a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.